In the 1960s, the United States built a jet so fast that missiles couldn't catch it. Not sometimes, but never. Then it disappeared, and more than half a century later, nothing has truly replaced it. So the mystery isn't how fast the SR-71 was. The real mystery is, why did the fastest spy plane ever built vanish? In the 1960s, the United States built a jet so fast that missiles couldn't catch it. Not sometimes, but never. Then it disappeared. And more than half a century later, nothing has truly replaced it. Why did the fastest spy plane ever built vanish? And why has nothing like it returned? To understand the SR-71, you have to understand the atmosphere of the early Cold War. This was not simply political tension. It was existential uncertainty. Two superpowers armed with nuclear weapons were trying to predict each other's next move, with almost no reliable information. Missile fields could appear in secret. Bombers could be prepared without warning. A single miscalculation could end civilization as we know it. In that world, intelligence wasn't power. It was survival. America needed to see deep inside the Soviet Union, and the only way to do that was from the sky. But the sky was becoming dangerous. The U-2 reconnaissance aircraft had once seemed untouchable, flying higher than enemy defenses could ever reach, until 1960, when a Soviet surface-to-air missile shot one down. Altitude alone was no longer a protection. If the United States wanted to keep watching from above, it would need something radically different. Not stealth, not armor, but speed beyond imagination. The project that would become the SR-71 did not begin in public view. It began in mass secrecy, inside one of the most unusual engineering groups ever assembled, Lockheed Skunk Works. Hidden behind ordinary-looking buildings, and far from traditional corporate oversight, this small team operated under a single philosophy: solve impossible problems fast. Led by the legendary engineer Clarence Kelly Johnson, Skunk Works had already produced revolutionary aircraft with unprecedented speed and efficiency. But the mission now was different. They weren't just building a better airplane. They were attempting to create a machine that pushed beyond the known limits of aerospace engineering, and to do it without the world knowing it existed. Secrecy wasn't optional, it was absolute. Workers were compartmentalized, documents were restricted, and even many within the government didn't know the full scope of what was being built. Because if an aircraft could outrun missiles, its existence alone would reshape global power, and that made secrecy just as critical as speed. What Skunk Works attempted next bordered on the impossible. An aircraft capable of sustained flight above Mach 3 would experience temperatures hot enough to destroy conventional airframes. Aluminum would fail, steel would weigh too much, so engineers turned to a metal rarely used at scale in aviation: titanium. More than 85% of the SR-71 structure would be built from it, creating enormous manufacturing challenges and forcing entirely new fabrication techniques. Even the fuel system revealed how extreme the aircraft truly was. On the ground, the Blackbird leaked fuel through tiny gaps in its structure. But once airborne, and as temperatures rose and metal expanded, those gaps sealed. What looked like a flaw was actually proof of how close this machine operated to the limits of physics. And then there were the engines. The Pratt & Whitney J58 was not merely powerful. At high speed, it transformed, behaving less like a turbojet and more like a ramjet, channeling shockwaves into thrust. The SR-71 wasn't just flying fast. It was turning the atmosphere itself into part of the engine. Most military aircraft rely on weapons, countermeasures, or stealth. The SR-71 relied on none of them. It carried no missiles, no guns, no defensive armor. Its only protection was its velocity. If radar locked on, the crew accelerated. If a missile launched, they accelerated more and the missile fell behind. Across thousands of reconnaissance missions, over the most heavily defended territory on Earth, no SR-71 was ever shot down by enemy fire. That level of survivability is almost without precedent. By every measurable standard, the Blackbird succeeded. which makes its disappearance even more mysterious. The SR71 did not fall in battle. It did not become obsolete in speed, and it did not fail technologically. Instead, the world changed around it. Satellites improved, becoming cheaper, safer, and capable of constant surveillance without risking pilots. Budgets tightened, political priorities shifted, and the immense cost of operating the Blackbird became harder to justify. Each flight required specialized fuel, complex maintenance, and extraordinary preparation. The aircraft remained unmatched, but the mission was evolving. Speed alone was no longer the ultimate advantage. So quietly, the fastest spy plane ever built was retired, not defeated, but left behind by history's direction. Decades later, you might expect a successor, something faster, higher, more advanced. But sustained hypersonic reconnaissance remains brutally difficult. Extreme heat, exotic materials, astronomical cost, limited strategic value, in an era dominated by stealth and space-based intelligence. So instead of a replacement, the SR-71 became something rare, a technological peak from a moment in history that no longer exists. Today, the SR-71 Blackbird remains the fastest air-breathing aircraft ever placed into operational service. More than half a century later, its records still stand. Not because innovation stopped, but because innovation moved in another direction. And maybe that's what makes the Blackbird so unforgettable. It wasn't just fast, it was perfectly engineered for a moment in history that will never return. Some machines win wars, some change technology, but a rare few become legends, simply because nothing else can catch them.